Hey, for slamming the door on my mom's husband after he demanded to walk me down the aisle? I am 27 years old. I am engaged to the love of my life, and about 2 weeks ago, I had to slam the door in the face of a man who is basically a stranger but who insists he should walk me down the aisle at my wedding. I know how that sounds. A completely unhinged man. But it is a lot more complicated than that, and I need to tell this story because I am still processing everything that happened. I guess I should start from the beginning when I was a baby. My mom Dana had me when she was about 22, and from what my dad Frank told me later, she basically disappeared about 6 months after I was born. It was not some dramatic affair where she left in the middle of the night or anything like that. One day she simply told my dad she was not ready to be a mother, that this was not what she wanted, and she left. Just like that. My dad tried to make things work. He asked her to try to go to therapy, whatever it took, but she had already made up her mind. They ended up in family court because my dad needed to formalize a custody agreement. The judge granted my dad full physical custody and ordered Dana to have scheduled visitations and pay child support. Spoiler alert. Neither of those things happened consistently. My dad raised me alone, and when I say alone I mean completely alone. He worked double shifts as a manager at an auto parts store to pay for everything. He would drop me off at daycare before his shift and pick me up after. He would cook for me. Well, he tried. He was not the best cook, but he made an effort. He helped me with my homework, read me bedtime stories, everything. He was my dad and my mom at the same time, you know? And never, not once, did he make me feel like I was a burden or that his life would have been better without me. Quite the opposite. He always told me I was the best thing that had ever happened to him, that I was his purpose in life. Dana, on the other hand, was like a ghost. The visitations the judge had ordered were for every other weekend, but she would show up maybe once every 2 or 3 months, if that. And when she did come, it was super awkward because it was obvious she did not know what to do with me. She would take me to the local park and spend the whole time on her phone, or buy me an ice cream and then bring me back to my dad's 2 hours earlier than scheduled because she had things to do. Child support was another issue. The truth is she hardly ever paid. My dad had to file motions with the court to enforce the order about 3 times, and she even faced legal consequences for non-payment on 2 occasions. Twice, can you believe it? And even then, she still did not pay consistently. My dad eventually gave up on pursuing it legally because it was costing him more in attorney's fees than what she owed him in arrears. When I was about 6 years old, Dana met Gordon. They got married super fast, like after 6 months of being together, and they started having kids almost immediately. They had 3 in total, one right after the other. Suddenly, Dana could be a mother, you know what I mean? She could have a family, take her kids to soccer practice, do the whole perfect suburban mom thing, but not with me. With me, she had been too young, was not ready. It was not the right time, blah blah blah. But with the children she had with Gordon, everything was different. That hurt a lot when I was a kid, even though my dad did everything he could to make sure I did not feel rejected. He told me that some people just do not know what they have until it is gone, and Dana was one of those people, but that it had nothing to do with me, that I was perfect just the way I was. What really got under my skin, and my blood still boils when I think about it, happened when I was about 10. My elementary school organized a Donuts with Dad event for Father's Day. You know, one of those things where dads come to school and do activities with their kids. My dad had requested the day off from work weeks in advance because he knew how important it was to me. The day of the event arrived, and we were in the middle of a craft activity when, out of nowhere, Gordon showed up. He just appeared there, uninvited, without telling my dad, without asking me if I wanted him there. He walked up to our table, all smiles like it was the most normal thing in the world, and said something to my dad like, "Hey Frank, I thought I would come support Casey too. You know, the more support the better, right?" My dad was confused, but being the kind man he always was, he did not want to make a scene. But I was furious. I was 10 years old, and I already knew Gordon had no right to be there. This guy, who I had seen maybe 5 times in my life, who was married to the woman who had abandoned me, thought he could just show up and play dad. I told him to leave. Literally. I said, "Gordon, I did not invite you. I do not want you here. Leave." My teacher overheard and got all uncomfortable, but my dad backed me up. He told Gordon he appreciated the gesture, but this was our moment, and it was probably best if he left. Gordon left, but you could tell he was offended, acting like I was some ungrateful kid who did not appreciate his efforts to be part of my life. Life went on like that for a few more years. Dana and Gordon had their perfect family. I had my dad, and we basically existed in parallel universes that rarely crossed. I was fine with that, honestly. I did not need them. I had everything I needed with my dad. We went fishing on weekends. He taught me how to drive in the huge, empty parking lot of the community college. He helped me with the science fair projects I always left until the last minute. He gave me terrible advice about boys that made me laugh. He was my best friend, you know? My favorite person in the world. And then everything came crashing down when I was 14. My dad died of a completely unexpected heart attack. He was 47. He was relatively healthy, or so we thought, and one day he just collapsed at work. By the time the paramedics arrived, it was too late. I got the news at school. The principal pulled me out of class and took me to the hospital, but he was already gone. I never got a chance to say goodbye. I could not tell him I loved him one last time. Nothing. One day my dad was alive and the next he was gone forever. The funeral was a nightmare, as you can imagine. I was devastated. I literally could not even process what had happened. My uncles Miles and Grant, my dad's brothers, were there helping me with everything because I was a minor and someone had to handle the legal arrangements and all that. Dana showed up with Gordon and their 3 kids, and I have to admit, part of me hoped that maybe, just maybe, this event would wake her up and make her realize that now I needed her, that she had to be there for me because I had just lost the only parent I ever knew. But no, of course not. Dana was at the funeral for maybe half an hour. She did not hug me, did not console me. She basically offered her condolences as if I were a casual acquaintance and not her biological daughter. Gordon, however, was trying to act like the hero of the situation. After the service, he approached me with this look of fake concern and told me he had talked to Dana, and that they wanted me to come live with them. That I should not be alone during this difficult time, that they could give me a stable home with my siblings, referring to the children he had with Dana, whom I barely knew. I looked at him like he had grown 2 heads. Did he seriously think I was going to go live with them? With the woman who had abandoned me, and the guy who had tried to replace my dad at my school event when I was 10? I told him no thanks, but no. My uncles Miles and Grant had already offered to let me stay with them, and I had accepted. Gordon insisted. He said that Miles and Grant were not married at the time, that they had no experience raising kids, and that a girl my age needed a mother figure, all that nonsense. I said to him, and I remember this perfectly because it was probably the harshest thing I had ever said in my life up to that point. You are not my father. Dana is not my mother in any way that matters, and I would rather live on the streets than with you. My uncles backed me up completely. They handled the whole legal situation through the courts, became my legal guardians, and I moved in with them. Miles and Grant were, and still are, incredible. They gave me space to grieve. They supported me in everything. They helped me finish high school and then get through college. They never tried to replace my dad, but they made me feel loved and safe, which was exactly what I needed. Over all those years, Gordon tried to contact me maybe 5 or 6 times. He would send me messages on social media, try to get my phone number through distant relatives. He even sent me a letter when I turned 18, saying he wanted to rebuild our relationship. What relationship? We did not have one. I blocked him on every platform. I told my uncles not to give him my information. I basically did everything I could to make it clear that I wanted nothing to do with him or Dana. Fast forward to about a month ago. I am 27. I live in my own apartment, have a good job in marketing, and I am engaged to Ethan, who is basically the best person in the world and understands me completely. We have been together for 5 years and got engaged 6 months ago. We were in the process of planning the wedding, looking at venues, making guest lists, all of it. The problem started at a distant cousin's birthday party. I do not usually go to family events on Dana's side for obvious reasons, but this specific cousin, let's call her Brielle, was always kind to me when we were kids and had invited me personally, so I decided to go. Ethan came with me because he knew it would be uncomfortable and wanted to give me moral support. When we arrived, Dana was there with Gordon and their 3 kids, who are now teenagers and young adults. We exchanged brief greetings like a quick, "Hi, how are you?" And that was it. I spent most of the party talking to other cousins and avoiding that side of the room. Everything was going relatively well until Gordon approached me. He was a little tipsy, you could tell, and he had that smile he thinks is friendly, but that gives me the creeps. He said, "Hey Casey, I heard you are getting married. Congratulations, that is amazing." I thanked him, trying to be polite and hoping he would leave, but no. He kept talking. He asked about the wedding, about the plans, about Ethan, and I gave him short answers because I did not want to have a real conversation with him. And then he dropped the bomb. He said, "You know, Casey, I have been thinking a lot about everything that happened between us, and I know things have not been easy, but now that you are getting married, I would like you to consider letting me walk you down the aisle. It would be an honor for me, and I think it would be a good way to start over, to leave it all behind and be a real family." I was in shock literally for a few seconds. Ethan, who was standing next to me, had his jaw on the floor too. I could not believe what I had just heard. This man who appeared in my life when I was 6, who I had seen maybe 20 times in total, who had not been there for anything important in my life, thought he had the right to walk me down the aisle at my wedding. He thought that would fix everything and make us a family. I told him no, obviously, but that was not enough for him. He started insisting, saying that Dana really wanted me to include them more in my life, that his kids, my supposed siblings, wanted to get to know me better, that it was time to get over the past and think about the future. Every word that came out of his mouth made me angrier. I tried to stay calm because we were in public and I did not want to ruin Brielle's party, so I told him very clearly, "Gordon, I appreciate you coming to talk to me, but I am not going to change my mind. The person who is going to walk me down the aisle is my Uncle Miles. He raised me after my dad died, and he is the one who deserves that honor. I hope you can understand that." I thought that would be enough, but I was completely wrong. Gordon got all defensive and started speaking louder, saying that Miles was not my real father, that Dana was my mother, and that by association he was a father figure in my life. That I was being immature and resentful for not giving them a chance. People around us started to notice something was going on, and Brielle came over to ask if everything was okay. That is when I lost my composure. I did not care about ruining the party or making a scene anymore. I was fed up. I said, and I said this loud enough for several people to hear, "Gordon, you are not a father figure in my life. You are not even part of my life. You are the husband of the woman who abandoned me as a baby and chose to be a mother to 3 other children, but not to me. You have no right to me and you never will. So please leave me alone once and for all." Gordon turned red, I do not know if from shame or anger, probably both. Dana, who had heard the end of my speech from her table, got up and came towards us. She looked at me with this face of total indignation and told me I was being dramatic and disrespectful, that Gordon was just trying to be nice, that I needed to grow up and stop living in the past. I told her, "Dana, you have no right to say anything to me about maturity or the past. You abandoned me, period. There is nothing more to discuss. I did not ask you to be in my life now, and I do not want you at my wedding." We left the party immediately after that. Ethan was proud of me for standing up for myself, but I was trembling with adrenaline and rage. Brielle texted me later, apologizing for what happened and telling me she had no idea Gordon was going to do that she was very sorry. I told her not to worry. It was not her fault. I thought that was the end of it, but no, of course not. 2 days later, Dana called me, and I made the mistake of answering. She screamed at me for literally 10 minutes, saying I had humiliated her in front of the whole family, that Gordon was hurt, that I was ungrateful, that after everything they had tried to do for me, this is how I repaid them. I asked her, "What exactly have you tried to do for me? Abandon me? Face legal trouble for not paying child support? Show up at my dad's funeral to offer a home I did not want? Harass me for years after I made it clear I wanted no contact?" She did not have a coherent answer, just kept yelling that I owed her respect because she was my mother. I told her, "You stopped being my mother the day you decided to leave when I was 6 months old. Being a mother is not just about giving birth. It is about being there, raising, caring, loving. And you did none of that with me. So no, I do not owe you anything." And I hung up. I blocked her number immediately after because I knew she would keep calling. I thought that was it, that it was finally over. But 2 weeks ago, Gordon showed up at my apartment. I do not know how he got my address, he probably asked some relative, but there he was knocking on my door on a Saturday morning. I opened it, thinking it was the package I was waiting for, and it was him. My stomach sank. He told me we needed to talk, that this had gone too far, that Dana was very upset, and that I needed to apologize to her. I told him I had nothing to apologize for, and that he needed to leave. He tried to put his foot in the door, like he literally tried to block me from closing it, and told me he was not leaving until I heard what he had to say. I yelled at him to get out or I would call the police, and Ethan came out of the bedroom when he heard the commotion. Gordon saw Ethan and switched tactics. He tried to appeal to him, saying that surely Ethan could make me see reason, that family was important, that I should not get married with so much resentment in my heart. Ethan looked at him and said very calmly, "Casey has told you to leave. Respect that or I will call the police myself." Finally, Gordon left, but not before saying that he and Dana were not going to give up, that one day I would mature and realize the mistake I was making. I slammed the door in his face, locked it, and just stood there shaking. Ethan hugged me and told me I had done the right thing, that they had no right to force themselves into my life. Since then, I have both of them blocked on everything. I told my uncles and any family member who has contact with them not to give them any information about me. And I asked Brielle to please not invite me to events where they will be present. Brielle completely understood and has been super supportive. The wedding is in 5 months and my Uncle Miles is going to walk me down the aisle, just as it was always the plan. Grant is going to be my man of honor because they are basically my two dads now. And Ethan has his family, who are wonderful and welcoming and treat me like I have always been a part of it. There is no room in my life for people who only show up when it is convenient for them, or when they want to feel good about themselves. Last week, Ethan and I were organizing the final details, and he asked if I ever regretted how I handled the situation with Gordon and Dana. I told him no, not for a second. Because the truth is, family is not who shares your blood. Family is who was there when you needed them most. Who picked you up when you fell. Who loved you unconditionally. My dad was my family. Miles and Grant are my family. Ethan is my family. Dana and Gordon are just strangers who share some genes with me, and that gives them no right over my life or my happiness. Comment. Your self-respect is one of the most valuable things you will ever own. Setting boundaries is not an act of cruelty. It's an act of profound self-respect. You get to decide who deserves a place in your life and what family truly means to you. True kindness means being kind to yourself first. You are not responsible for healing the people who caused you pain. Healing often means choosing peace over proving a point. Letting go of toxic connections is not a loss. It's a gain in freedom and tranquility. You deserve to build a future filled with people who genuinely celebrate and support you. Always remember to honor your own journey and the peace you have worked so hard to create. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.